You understand, right? You're going to take care of my mother properly." Out of nowhere, my husband Ben said that to me. He had a tone that implied it was only natural for me to take care of his mother. I hadn't agreed to anything, but he already came at me with a definitive tone, giving me no room to argue. "If you don't like it, we'll get a divorce." He even threatened divorce, trying to make me obey his words. But little did he know what was about to unfold. My name is Ellie. I used to work as a nurse, but now I'm a full-time housewife. When we got married, Ben insisted that I become a full-time housewife, and I reluctantly quit my job. Ben, my husband, is a white-collar worker at a top company. We got married 4 years ago, but we still don't have any children, which I've been wanting for some time. We were living in a rented house, and suddenly, Ben started saying that he wanted to live with his mother. It seems my mother's back condition isn't good, and it's tough for her to be alone. The spare room is available, so it should be fine, right? To be honest, I didn't want to live with her, but my mother-in-law Lisa usually didn't bother me or engage in any harassment. Let me think about it for a moment. I asked my husband that. However, the next day, Lisa moved in without my consent. I've already cancelled my apartment, so I have nowhere else to live. She forcefully started living with us. My husband's father had already passed away, and Lisa had been living alone until now. It seems her chronic back pain worsened, and my husband became worried. Without my agreement, Lisa and husband moved in, and I began to feel a sense of distrust. I also started to feel dissatisfied with Lisa's actions. The day after she moved in, despite heavy rain, "Ellie, could you do me a favor and go shopping? I'm running out of supplements, so please go to the drugstore and buy them." She imposed the shopping task on me. It seems like there's still some of the supplement left, so I said, "Since it's raining heavily, can I do it tomorrow?" When I gently refused, "You don't care about my health. If I don't take the supplements, my condition will worsen and it'll be tough." She yelled at me with great force, and I got scared. Reluctantly, I went to buy the supplements in the pouring rain. I had to buy several types of supplements, including vitamin pills. When I returned and handed them to Lisa, I could have gone myself, but my back hurts and I can't move. She made excuses even though she had no intention of going by herself from the beginning. Moreover, it turned out there was still stock left, so there was no need for me to go out in the rain specifically to buy them. From then on, Lisa, taking advantage of her back pain, continued to push the shopping responsibilities onto me. And as if it were natural, "Next time, I have to go to the hospital. Please, Ellie." She started using me as her means of transportation for medical appointments without any gratitude. The hospital she went to was quite far, an hour's drive each way. So I had to kill time in the lobby until her examination was over. It felt like an incredibly wasted time, and my anger grew even more. On top of that, ever since we started living together, Lisa had transformed into a different person and began bullying me. While doing household chores, Lisa would complain about every little thing. When I cooked meals, "I didn't realize it before, but Ellie, your cooking skills are terrible. It's such a pity that Ben had to eat such awful food." She made sarcastic remarks. Regarding housework, she would constantly make nonsensical criticisms. When I was cleaning, "Why are you vacuuming while I'm watching TV? Can't you hear that I can't hear the TV sound?" She would shout like that, but Lisa had nothing to do all day and would watch TV constantly, so there was no time for me to use the vacuum cleaner. The same went for laundry. When I used the washing machine, "You're making noise again and disturbing me. Do it like in the old days with a washboard." She would say things like that, but would push her own laundry onto me. She constantly said such unreasonable things, so one time, "Would you please show me how to do it, Lisa? I'll learn from your example." When I asked her, "You're just trying to have fun while exploiting a sick person," she shouted at me angrily, not sounding like someone who is unwell. Frustrated with Lisa's behavior, which seemed like she was only enjoying criticizing me, I decided to consult with my husband. "Your mother is constantly making sarcastic remarks towards me. Can't you ask her not to do that too often?" With a desperate plea, I shared my feelings with my husband. "However, you'll eventually get along. You should try to get along with her too." His words made it seem like I was at fault, and it only added to my growing dissatisfaction. I hadn't realized it until we started living with Lisa, but it seemed like my husband valued her more than he did me. I realized that venting my frustrations about Lisa to my husband wouldn't change anything, and I had to endure it alone. The stress took a toll on me, and I ended up falling ill. I lost my appetite, had trouble sleeping at night, and started experiencing abnormal sensations in my stomach. When I went to a nearby large hospital for an examination, I was diagnosed with a stomach ulcer, and they immediately said I needed to be hospitalized. I didn't think my condition was that severe, but they told me I would need to stay in the hospital for about 2 months, which further surprised me. When I told my husband about my need for hospitalization due to the stomach ulcer, his response was insensitive. "Who will do the household chores while you're in the hospital? It's such a hassle to have a weak wife." He showed no concern for my health and seemed more bothered by the increased burden on himself. Having received another snide remark from Lisa, "You're a useless wife who just lazes around as a housewife." As usual, she made her sarcastic comment. But the reason I became a housewife was at my husband's request, and I developed a stomach ulcer due to Lisa's constant bullying. Listening to both of them talk only intensified the pain in my stomach. I had informed my mother about my need for hospitalization, so she came to visit me every day. My mother raised me alone after divorcing my father when I was young, and I didn't even remember what my father looked like. According to my mother, he was a doctor, but I had completely forgotten about that. I was grateful to my mother for checking up on me every day, but she noticed that my husband and mother-in-law never came to visit. "It seems like your husband and mother-in-law are not getting along well. Is everything okay?" When she asked me that, I couldn't help but burst into tears. Initially, I hadn't explained to my mother that the cause of my stomach ulcer was due to my husband and mother-in-law. But I mustered the courage and told her everything. After listening to my story, my mother looked at me with a saddened expression. "The reason I divorced your father was also because of the constant bullying from my mother-in-law," she informed me with a melancholic face, surprising me since I had never been told the reasons behind my parents' divorce. As my mother was about to leave, she told me something meaningful. "You must value your own future and make decisions when the time comes." With a serious expression, she said those words, but deep inside, I had already made up my mind. As 2 months passed and the day of my discharge from the hospital arrived, neither my husband nor Lisa came to the hospital. However, I felt relieved because my mother was there with me. On that day, my mother seemed unusually cheerful. "Mother, is something good happening? You seem really happy today." When I asked her, she replied with a somewhat bashful tone. "Actually, there's something I need to tell you. I'll explain it to you later." She spoke with a hint of shyness. I was curious about my mother's demeanor, but judging from her joyful expression, it seemed like she had good news to share. So I decided to wait for her to tell me. Accompanied by my mother, we returned to my in-laws' house. Waiting for me there were my angry-looking husband and mother-in-law. At the moment I saw their faces, I expected my stomach to start hurting again. However, surprisingly, I felt fine, which surprised me. Maybe deep inside, I had already made up my mind to end things with my husband, so I thought I could endure their harassment for a while longer. My husband, shouting, proceeded to explain why they were both angry at me. "Because you were hospitalized, my mother's back condition worsened. Now she has to be hospitalized too. Once she becomes in need of care, you will take care of her properly." He never took any responsibility for caregiving, and always imposed Lisa's care on me. I'm sorry, but I have no intention of being a caregiver. She's your mother, so take care of her yourself. I answered firmly, and for a moment, my husband was at a loss for words. But soon he started shouting. If you don't want to take care of her, then let's get a divorce. It'll be tough for you, a stay-at-home wife, if we get divorced. Is that what you want? In a threatening tone, my husband yelled at me. I don't want to be involved in your mother's care, so I'm getting a divorce. I made it clear once again that I would not be providing care. While we were arguing, my mother remained silent and observed the situation. As my husband mentioned, getting a divorce would indeed put me in a difficult situation since I didn't have a job. However, I thought it would be better than living with my husband and mother-in-law, risking my health once again. Besides, with my nursing qualifications, I was confident I could find employment quickly, so I didn't consider it too seriously. When I mentioned getting a divorce, my husband belittled me. You have no job, so if you divorce me, you'll be left with nothing. Don't come crying to me later. He spoke with a condescending tone. Lisa glared at me while shouting. You should just silently take care of me. How audacious of you to talk about divorce. She yelled loudly, but she didn't appear to be someone in need of care at all. At that moment, my mother finally spoke up. I apologize for interrupting, but Ellie will be fine even without a job. Don't worry. Ellie's father and I have reconciled, so we will take care of everything. By the way, Ellie's father is the director of the large hospital where Ellie was hospitalized, so we can have a better life than now. My mother revealed a fact that even I didn't know, leaving me surprised. However, my husband and mother-in-law were even more shocked. I said to my mother, so, that's why you looked so happy. You should have told me earlier. I said with a smile. Then my mother, feeling embarrassed, spoke again. I went to visit you and had a reunion with your father after a long time. It's embarrassing, but we decided to reconcile. According to my mother's story, she had no idea that the hospital where I was hospitalized was being run by my father. They happened to meet in the hallway and started talking, which eventually led to their reconciliation. With the uncertainty of post-divorce life lifted, I immediately prepared to leave the house with only the necessary belongings. Then, suddenly, my husband spoke in a gentle voice. Ellie, divorce was just a joke. You don't have to take care of my mother. Stay here with me. Upon hearing my husband's words, Lisa's face turned into a furious expression. However, my husband didn't pay any attention to her and approached me. After finding out that I was the daughter of the hospital director, his attitude completely changed and he continued speaking. If you're the daughter of the hospital director, that means as your husband, I can become a future executive. Just put my mother in some facility and don't worry about the caregiving. He said with a smirk on his face. Seeing my husband's transformation and his audacious remarks, I felt a sense of fear. What nonsense are you talking about? You were the one who brought up divorce. Don't say whatever you want. I will also claim compensation for the emotional distress caused by your mother's harassment. I will contact you regarding the divorce proceedings through my lawyer. I declared, and then I left with my mother, leaving behind my in-laws. Unable to give up, my husband pleaded with me. Please, don't say that. He cried out, hoping I would reconsider. But I responded coldly. You said, even if you come crying to me later, I won't acknowledge it. So even if you come crying to me, I won't acknowledge it. With those words, I pushed my husband away and left the in-laws' house with my mother. As we walked away, we could hear Lisa screaming. Ben, did you really say you would put me in a facility? Is that true? My husband seemed to panic as he tried to come up with excuses. And no, it's a lie. I just said that to make Ellie come back and take care of you. Don't be mad. Both my mother and I were appalled by my husband's inability to even mention that he would provide care himself. After seeking the help of a lawyer for the divorce and compensation claims, Things went according to my arguments. I received compensation and the divorce was finalized, giving me a sense of relief. Since leaving my in-laws' house, my husband and mother-in-law fought constantly, leading to a strained relationship. My husband, who had no desire to provide care, forced Lisa into a nursing facility. Lisa felt lonely being on her own, while my husband, now living alone, let his life fall into disarray. He accumulated debts through gambling and drinking, and even failed to pay the fees for the nursing facility. His life spiraled further out of control, and eventually, debt collectors came after him at his workplace. Feeling uncomfortable, he chose to resign voluntarily. Fortunately, I had already received the compensation, but I had no idea what became of my debt-ridden husband or whether Lisa remained in the facility. I started working as a nurse at my father's hospital, and I began dating a doctor I met through him. Unlike my ex-husband, this new person was sincere and not self-centered, so I seriously considered marriage with him.